Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's dive right in. So the agenda for today. So we're gonna start from the introduction of what is AI agent evaluation. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to you? And then I will cover the four-stage framework that we use for AI agent evaluation. And then Efrat is gonna dive deep into the evaluation in Microsoft Copilot Studio and give you a demo, and we'll end with a Q&A session. So let's dive into what is AI agent evaluation. And I want to start with a question that I hear all the time from agent builders and our customers is how do I know if my agent is actually good? And honestly, that's one of the hardest questions in AI agent development right now, because unlike traditional software, where you can just run a test and it's binary pass or fail, with AI agent, the answer is always usually it depends. So, what is AI agent evaluation? At its simplest definition here, it is a systematic way, a process to measure how well your agent perform its intended task. But why do we call it evaluation instead of testing? Because there's a key difference from the traditional testing. So with traditional testing, traditional software testing, you're asking, does the code run? Does it produce the expected output? And the answer is always binary pass or fail. However, with AI agent, the question is different. It's not simply does it work, pass or fail, but it's how good it is. And it's a much harder question to answer. It's a multidimensional question. So I like to think of it like quality control in manufacturing. So you wouldn't ship a car without testing its brake. And the same idea is that you shouldn't deploy an agent without thoroughly testing its responses. And the goal for evaluation is to make sure that your agent doesn't just work, it actually works well. So next slide, please. And so, why should you care about this? Why should you care about evaluation? And let me start with painting a picture that might sound familiar. So, say that you're building an agent and you demo it to your stakeholders. It all looks amazing. Everyone's excited. And then you deploy it. And then when real user comes in, start using it, and suddenly you're hearing feedback like this isn't working or the quality isn't there, or my favorite is like it's just not good enough. But what does like not good enough means? Like what does the quality isn't there mean? So this is a hard question that evaluation can help you answer, and this is why evaluation is here and what happens if we can do the evaluation driven development. So let me show like the contrast of what changes when you flip the approach of build first and test later to evaluation driven development. So without a systematic evaluation, you can get demo versus reality gap. It can work great in demo environment, demo settings, but falls apart with real users. But with evaluation built from day one, you can catch this problem before the real users do. And without evaluation, you get that diagnostic blind spots. So someone may say it's not good enough, and you're left asking, okay, but what specifically? Like with evaluation, you turn that vague feedback into something that you can actually act on. And without evaluation, every change is a gamble, and change can take a long time to be validated. Like, did that prompt update actually work? Did that model update actually help, or did it actually hurt something else? It's always a guessing work, but with evaluation, you can measure and it works with evidence. And without evaluation, you find the problem after deployment when they become expensive to fix, and your users may already lost trust in this agent. But with evaluation, you are able to catch the issues early on. So the shift is really simple. It's from hoping your agent works to knowing it works with quantifiable evidence. And next slide, please. Before we jump into the evaluation framework, I want to talk about the prerequisite before you can start evaluation. So evaluation only works if you have a clear understanding of what the agent does, what you are evaluating. These are the three prerequisites serve as the foundation that you need to nail down before the evaluation. So first is the core mission of this agent. What specific tasks should the agent accomplish? And second is the scope and boundary of this agent. And the third is key scenarios, which are the what are the must-handle situations, the things that if your agent can do them well, it's not solving the problem that the agent's built for. So we've seen teams that skip the step and jump straight into the building test cases step, and they may end up measuring the wrong thing. So take the prerequisite step seriously at the beginning is crucial. And now let's look at this 4-stage framework for agent evaluation. So this 4-stage, the design is, or the purpose is to take you from, I have no idea if this is good, to I have confidence to ship this agent. So the stage 1 is what we call core, is building the test cases for your key scenarios. So this is your foundation, the core eval sets. And stage 2 is baseline. So this is when you run these test cases for your core eval sets for the key scenarios, and then see where you stand, and you iterate until you hit your quality targets. And then stage 3 is the expansion stage, expand. So this is stage when you go beyond the basics. This is where you add variations, architecture tests, edge cases tests. This is where you expand systematically to cover the test comprehensively. And last but not the least is operationalize stage. This is where you want to automate the evaluation process so it runs continuously, making sure that quality is visible all the time, not just at release time. So I've drawn this as a linear flow, but I want to be crystal clear that this is not a linear process at all. You will loop back. This is a very iterative process, and it's a great idea to always revisit earlier stage as you learn, as you test, and that's how it's supposed to work. Okay, so next slide. So let's start with stage 1. So this is actually the stage where we see a lot of teams, they know that they need to test their agent, but they don't know where to start. And that's why we developed this mental model to make the starting point easier. So there are 4 levels in this model. At the top is the quality signals. So these are the agent level quality signals. What does quality actually mean for this specific agent? And the next level is the use case level. So these are the key scenarios. What situations must this agent handle well? So these are the cornerstone. These are the starting point to help you start thinking about evaluation. And then there's an individual prompt level, which consists of the test cases and acceptance criteria. So test case is specific user input under a specific key scenario. This is the actual test part of the test case that you want to include in your eval set. And at the bottom is the acceptance criteria. So these are the criteria for specific user input, what makes the agent response good, what the response must include, what should the response avoid, etc. So on the right-hand side is an example of how this comes into play in an HR assistant agent. So a quality signal for HR assistant agent might be the policy accuracy. And then the key scenario for this quality signal or for this agent is answering HR policy question. And then a test case for this specific scenario is how many PTO days do I get? And then based on or for this test case, the acceptance criteria could be the response must include the correct PTO balance based on the employee tenure. The response should cite the relevant policy document and provide a link to the full policy. So see how we went from abstract quality to something that is concrete and testable. So here is the pro tip and insight is like starting with your key scenario, although we put the quality signals on top. But the key scenarios is actually we found as a anchor, as a easier starting point. So you start with defining your key scenarios, and then you work up to discover what quality signals matter, and then you work down to create specific test cases. So the key scenarios are your bridge between abstract and concrete test cases. And next slide, please. So practically, how do you approach stage one as 3 steps? So first, you identify the key scenarios, and then define the representative user inputs for each key scenario. And then based on the user input, you want to define the specific acceptance criteria, specifically what good quality looks like for that agent response. So one more important thing I want to point out is you don't actually need a working agent to start this evaluation process or start with this stage one. In fact, what we observe is by defining your evaluation, the key scenarios, representative user input, and acceptance criteria before you build an agent proof of concept, that actually helps you ensure that you're building an agent towards a clear goal. So it actually helps with building agent process, and you don't need to wait till you have an agent POC or a working agent to do this step. So it's like writing some tests before you write the code. You want to write some core eval test cases before you build the agent. And then next slide is the stage two. So stage two is where you actually want to run eval. You want to see where you stand. So this is once you have a working agent. It can just be a proof of concept, like a bare minimum working agent, and then you want to run this agent against the core test cases you built in stage one, and this will give you a baseline, a quantitative snapshot of your starting performance of this agent. And don't be discouraged by this first test run. If you're at below 50% pass rate, that's actually pretty typical. And the point isn't to be perfect on day one on this version. The point is to know where you are at, so that you know like how you can improve. And the key mindset is that it's a hill climbing process. And so after you run the core test cases, important step is to analyze the failure. So you don't want to just count your failure, just stop with a percentage of pass-fail rate. You actually want to categorize them and analyze them. For example, is it like a knowledge source issue? Maybe your documents are outdated. Maybe the document organization needs improvement, or is it a personalization failure? Maybe it's missing context integration. So you want to analyze the failure to do the fixes. And last but not least, this iteration loop. So it should be iteration of evaluate, analyze, improve, reevaluate until you hit the quality targets. And next slide, please. So then the stage 3 is once you have iterated to a solid baseline for your key scenarios and core eval sets, you want to expand your evaluation coverage systematically. And here are the 4 categories that can help you systematically do the expansion. So first is core eval set. So this set should be built and refined in stage 1 and 2. And this is a set that can help you quickly track regression when you implement changes. And the second category is a variation test. This variation test set can help you confirm your success in core set generalized beyond the exact test cases in the core. So you know that when this fails, your agent is a little bit brittle. And the third category is architecture test. So these serves as a diagnostic tool to help you pinpoint where exactly in the system in the agent architecture failures may occur. And last but not least are the edge cases that can help you verify that agent handle unusual inputs well. So here's why this matters. Because without these categories, what we observe is that deciphering the eval results is a painful process if you don't have these organization, this structure, and these categories. So when eval results give you a 60% pass rate, if you lack this structure, you will be left with okay, so what, but why and where should I look? What should I do? So these categories can help you to interpret the eval results and make it become more targeted and actionable. And next slide, please. So we can jump to the stage 4 because of the time. Okay. So to next slide, please. Yeah. So for stage 4 is operationalize stage. So this stage helps you to make the whole agent evaluation sustainable, because evaluation isn't a one-time thing. It should be ongoing consistently. So the key idea here is to establish a cadence for running your test. So here is just some idea and examples of when to run each category of eval test cases, but by no means this is a standard. It should be case by case design. So for example, core test cases can be run or should be run on every change. It helps you quickly track regression. And variations can be run before each release. And architecture tests can be run when you identify some failures surfaces, and you want to debug the failure. And edge cases can be run after any guardrail changes, any new policy that need to be implemented. So also, you want to consider certain events may trigger a full eval suite run. For example, model upgrades, like major upgrades to your knowledge base or new integrations. Like all of these, should be considered and help you design your operationalizing the evaluation. And why do you want to design this? The payoff is you want to implement this system. So with this in place, you can experiment freely while keeping a consistent snapshot of how the agent performed. And next slide. So the key takeaway here is that one, you want to define the quality signal specific to your agent. The more specific, the better. And second is follow the 4-stage framework from define the core to baseline to expand to operationalize. And remember that it's okay to look back. It should be an iterative process. And 3 is using the 4 evaluation categories to expand more systematically. And fourth is that embrace the iteration loop of evaluate, analyze, improve, and re-evaluate. And there's a saying in the industry that if the pass rate is beyond 80%, you should have more or harder test cases. So I always say the goal is not to achieve 80% or 100% pass rate, but to help identify what goes wrong and help improve continuously. And last but not least is operationalize, so that you can move fast with confidence. And the bottom line is the AI agent evaluation can help you transform the agent isn't good enough into something like we are failing on these specific scenario for these specific reasons, and here are the fixes. And with that, let me hand it over to Efrat to show you how this all comes to life in Copilot Studio.
Thank you, Serena. Okay, so let's start. The main things that we are going to cover in the remaining times that we have is basically how we implement all the information and the materials that we just heard from Serena. What is agent evaluation looks like in Copilot Studio. So the main questions that we basically wanted to solve is how we actually trust our agent behavior. So we have the stage before publish, before we go to production, and basically how we trust the agents as it involved. So let's start with the presentation. So let's introduce agent evaluation in Copilot Studio. Agent evaluation, it's basically not an add-on. It's basically a core part of Copilot Studio. The goal is to make agent quality measurable, repeatable, and outcome-based, not based on gut feeling or spot check. And this aligns directly with how we think about building production-ready agent. Evaluate, measure, and improve. We don't just build agent. We evaluate them before and after they go public. So let's start with the core capability that we have in agent evaluation. So like Serena mentions, before we start evaluation, every maker define what he would like to test, which scenario, which knowledge, which prompt, which tools, what is the agenda. And that just then he start with the evaluation. And the evaluation process start with test data. So test data in the system can be created manually. So if you know exactly what your customers would like to ask the agent, you can import that from your files. Maybe you already prepare some predefined questions. Maybe you have some business industry specific questions that you would like to test. And of course, you will be able to reuse production conversation. So you will be able to extract production conversation, upload that to the evaluation tool and run them and understand deeply what went wrong with the agent. We also provide AI generated test cases tool. And this amazing tool is basically based on the agent definition, the agent topics, description, and knowledge. And once you basically complete with the data set, you are able to choose how to evaluate. We are going to the next stage. So how to evaluate basically include the quality checks that we are offering, like meaning comparison, similarity, exact, keyword matching, and even custom classification logic tailored to the user needs. So imagine that with one prompt in a natural language, you will be able to specify what is the instruction for the evaluation in order to test the evaluation according to your business needs. You also will be able to set the labels that you would like to see in the results and run the evaluation. And I will show everything in the demo that we will have soon. After the evaluation process run, you will get the detailed results. So it's not going to be just a pass or fail and a score, an 80, 60, but basically label, failure reason, some numbers that reflect the actual process and insights that every user will be able to actually act on. And the key point is that this is structure and repeatable and not ad hoc testing process. So for now, we are on public preview release. Soon we are going to be GA. And the agent evaluation basically happens directly in Copilot Studio before deployment. So as I mentioned, makers can run structured tests on key scenarios. They can catch regression early, build or import test set, let AI generate new queries for them at every stage, measure results using grader based scoring, and compare run over time to validate improvements. So it imagines that you run the evaluation once and then you change something within the agent, you can run it again and compare the results in order to validate the improvements or the regression that you face. So this is about moving from it seems fine to the phase that we know why this works. So before we are going to have the demo, I have one interesting questions to ask you. What is the hardest part about evaluation your agent today? So I would like to hear from you. This is an open questions about the difficulty, the challenge that you have today about evaluation your agents today. Again, please scan the QR code. We will be happy to see some of your answer. I hope that your response is basically going to surface some of your real pain points. And of course, we will address them in our product. So let's see. Okay, I think we have a problem here because it's not an open question. Okay.
Give me, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. So Ashley, let's move to the demo and maybe return later to this.
Sure, sounds good.
This question? Okay. So we are now heads to the demo. Let me reshare my screen and you will be able to see my environment. Here. Can you see my screen? And you can see me as well, right? Okay, I guess so. Okay, so this is my agent. I built an agent a few days ago. The agent is about assisting with HR policy questions. I upload some knowledges that will be helpful to our user. I basically enter some topics and got all the instruction and description as necessary to basically create a good agent. But the question is, does it a quality agent? Can I trust him? How it's basically behave? So let's meet agent evaluation. Here I already have some previous test runs that I did and also some test sets that I basically created. Let's start with the new evaluation after we know exactly what is the scenarios that we would like to validate and what is the process and the changes that we did in the evaluation. Like I said earlier, the first stage of evaluation after we define all of our open questions is starting with the data set. It's really important that data set will reflect the scenario and the agents that you would like to validate. Here you have a couple of options. First of all, and the simple one, if you already prepare some predefined questions, you will be able to browse or drag a CSV file. You can select the file and in 1 second you upload the list of questions and the expected response that apply to those relevant questions. And basically, you will be able to start your journey with the evaluation process. So this is something that is very easy to do. I'm going to return back and start all over if I don't have something to start with. And I'm wondering what will be the questions that my user will ask me. I can use our AI generation and basically start with a quick question set. So, based on the topics, the descriptions, and the knowledge that include within the agent, I'm getting a list of 10 questions that AI generate for me that relevant to my agent. And I can start quickly explore how my agent run and how it's basically behave. So this is basically the first stage. Next, we talked about some test method, how we basically check what is the grading methods that we are going to have in the evaluation process. And here on the right side, you will be able to see a button that basically once I press on it, I get all the grader that basically available to me as a catalog of graders. So I will able to choose the compare meaning that basically defined intent and run the evaluation based on the expected response and the agent response and compare the intent between those two. We have the keywords match that basically I can ask my evaluation to look for matching of words or phrases within the agent response. I have text similarity, I have exact match, I have capability use whether I would like to check how my agent use specific knowledge, specific tools, and specific topics in order to generate their answer. And finally, I have the classification grader. This is where I have my ability and flexibility to write in one sentence, even two sentences, exactly what the instructions that I want the evaluation process to validate for me. And of course, we have the general quality. General quality is one of our graders that come out of the box. And as you can see, it's a default grader. General quality based also on AI with four different relevant metrics. It basically contains the relevance metrics, the grounded metrics, the completeness, and the abstention. And basically, it checks every single questions if they basically grounded within the agent. So you will be have a general quality assessment about what is the quality of the agent just using this amazing grader. So if we are going back to the test set that I already ran, I basically could show you a couple of things. So let's take one of the test set that I already prepared. And here you can see that I have a list of questions with list of expected response. Not every grader should have an expected response, but you know, the capability, the similarity, the compare meaning should have expected response in order to do the comparison. General quality not require any expected response. So let's see the custom grader, the classification grader. And I think this is the most interesting part. So as you can see, we have here text box that you just quickly mark your instruction, your evaluation instructor in your own native language with your own words, and basically you determine what exactly you would like to validate. So here I basically use my words, evaluate whether the agent response is clear, factual, and based strictly on official company policy. Judge only the agent response. Do not allow assumption, okay, or personal interpretation. Choose one overall label based on the full response. That's it. I wrote it. And basically, instead of pass and fail, I would like to see that in a certain way that align with my business specification or other needs. I don't want to see pass. I would like to see it as this is correct and this is incorrect. And voila, I basically create a new custom grader. Okay, so I will run all those test methods together And also, yeah, we are supporting multiple graders. So you have the ability to choose more than one, basically up to 5 different graders, and see the evaluation run in one test results page. So let's go to the ones that I already run in order to save some time because I'm aware of the time. And let's see some of the evaluation results. Okay, so in the evaluation results, we have 2 layers. One is the high level evaluation summary, when you can see each one of the graders with the performance. So the green represent the pass and the red represent the fail. And of course, we have a deep dive understanding and the reasoning and explanation for each queries separately. We have for each grader the reason behind what is pass and what is fail. For example, general quality, as I mentioned, run on 4 different metrics. Um, we have seen here is that it seems relevant, it seems completeness, and it's based on knowledge sources, which is groundless. We don't see any abstention. Abstention metrics basically relevant to the situation when the agent refused to answer, and we see that there is no abstention here. Here is the classification grader. So I created, as you saw, the instruction, and basically I see the outcome, whether it's pass, meaning correct, or whether it's incorrect, and the capability use, whether we basically use those topics or not. You can see here is that none of those topics were used during the process of evaluation. Of course, for each type of question, we present the questions that asked by the simulator. What was the expected response if the user entered? And what was the agent response, also with citation. So for example, if we have used some knowledges, so we have the knowledges that were covered during the evaluation run and the agent response, and also which knowledge you basically use and what is the citation. So this is the results of evaluation. And if I'm going back, I will be able to show you for a certain run, we will have the ability to do some comparison. So as you can see here, I basically run a certain evaluation test set, and basically I can start comparing the results with previous run. For example, I choose to compare it with the test set that I ran yesterday, and I can see that there is no change. But if the system identifies some changes, we will be able to see side by side between the current and the comparison version of the agent the outcome of evaluation. And then we will be able to understand what went wrong or what basically improved during our effort to improve the agent behavior. So I will stop right now with the demo. I hope that everything is makes sense, and I would like to share with you. Thank you for the for your reactions. And now I would like to make sure that we understand the classification grader, because this is very important for us to emphasize. And this is something that we are launching these days. So we definitely would like to share this announcement with you. So evaluation becomes truly flexible. So instead of relying just on our generic quality signal, you can define the logic that you would like to have in your evaluation run and basically classify the outcome using the labels that I show you. So this is matter because it adapts to domain specific needs, it provides explainable, human readable result, and it surfaces nuanced quality gaps that traditional graders sometimes miss. So no longer ask, did this pass? You can ask, how did it behave and why with the agent evaluation.
Okay. Next is, all of these stages are good, but for our citizen developers who are not in IT, but the business wants these AI agents to grow, what is recommended for us to review these AI agents before they are deployed to other coworkers?
I think this is for Serena about the stages.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for your question. Yeah, this is a great question. And so the short answer is we are collecting signals and we are working on a playbook for citizen developers to follow. But at this point, like I mentioned, like agent quality and the eval should be really stemmed from specifically the agent that you are building. So like should always like start with the what are the key scenarios, what are the core use cases, and run the evaluation, the test in probably using Copilot Studio like Efrat showed, and you can then show the data, show the evidence of the key scenarios with confidence, with quantifiable results to the decision maker, to coworkers, to stakeholders, to create that confidence in the AI agent. Efrat, do you have anything to add on? Yeah, but that's a great question, and I think like that's a challenge that we are currently having. Like not we, but every agent builder is currently facing. So thanks for the question.
Awesome. I think that this is going to be it is a pretty popular question, which is, I don't have this evaluations UI yet. Mine looks more basic. When is this new experience available?
Okay. The simple answer is next week. So we basically launched the release 3.5 weeks ago, and by the end of this week, beginning of next week, every area and region around the world will be available. So we will reach them. So stay tuned. Beginning of next week, open evaluation with the new UI.
Awesome. Let me go here. Next question. If you disagree with the auto pass or fail score, how can you change it? I have seen passes that I believed, in my opinion, were fails.
Yeah, this is very interesting question. I think, Sarah, if we can take it offline, I will be happy to talk with you and see the examples. We are going to launch a deep dive of explainability to each one of the results that we are going to provide. And it will be very interesting to see if after we're going to enhance them, the reason you still feel the same, that this is a pass, but it's basically a fail one. So we are working on that from quality perspective, UI perspective, more reason to make sure that you understand how we basically grade and what the evaluation run did. Yes, Serena.
Yeah, I can add on that. So we are also on top of the Copilot Studio, this evaluation tool. We are also releasing some more advanced eval feature in the Copilot Studio kit. So there's one feature called Human and LM Judge alignment tool. So in the Copilot Studio Kit, there will be a feature that allow you to annotate your pass and fail and graders pass and fail, and help you to see like what exactly is going on, like what category do you always see the misalignment. So that is also something that Copilot Studio Kit is going to provide.
Awesome. Okay, we do have one more minute, but I think we can go a little bit over, maybe like 5 minutes or so over, just to answer a couple more questions. If that's okay. Next question is, a lot of the subjects I want to assess involve multi-message scenarios. For example, if a person replies in a particular manner, how does the agent respond, such as with escalation? Since evaluation doesn't allow for this, is there an effective method to assess these types of interactions?
Yeah, since we are not under NDA, I think we can table this for a couple more weeks. We are going to solve that. So in a couple more weeks, we will have some announcements about this area.
Awesome. Okay, next question. After providing thumbs up or down along with feedback on the evaluation and retesting, I noticed no change in the evaluation. What is the function of this process? Does submitting feedback truly have an impact?
Yeah, it has impact. However, it's not the capability that basically you imagine. The feedbacks that we are collecting here is that what you feel on the evaluation feature, it's not aiming to return feedback into the process. For this matter, we are going to have, like on the previous one, we will have some announcements and news in the upcoming weeks.
Awesome. Okay, next question. I want to use files or attachments in my input for the evals, but it doesn't seem like Copilot Studio supports that. How do I get around this?
Yeah, same answer here. I'm sorry, because we are not under NDA. So a lot of upcoming capabilities.
Okay, you guys I like the questions that the audience is asking. They're trying.
Yeah, no, they basically, find the gaps that we have, but we are going to handle that. And basically, this will solve a lot of problems and pain points. So this is exactly the directions that we will like to go.
Awesome. Okay, we have one more minute. In evaluation, can we add the expected answers manually instead of an AI judge coming up with expected answer?
Sure. It's one of the options. Sure, no problem.
Sweet.
You can see that on the screens, be underneath the text box with the browse generate AI, you have a link to basically create manual questions or answer. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Can we also evaluate agents that are created by end users from within Copilot itself?
You can evaluate every agent that created in copilotstudio.com. So basically, if that's the questions. Sorry?
I think that was an accident.
I think they probably mean like the declarative agent, like using agent builder.
Created by the end user mean declarative agent. So again, under NDA, but you can sense the direction.
Okay, last question, and then we'll say thank you to our speakers. Okay. Are Copilot Studio evaluations mainly focused on generative AI? What frameworks or standards are used to assess other components like agent actions in Dataverse or transactions initiated in third-party systems such as Dynamics 365, ERP, and then example, agent reading emails and creating sales orders form for email?
Yeah, it's the same question, the same answers that I get. We have a lot of plans and things to share in the upcoming future. So stay tuned.
I love it. Okay, so you guys heard it here first, and stay tuned. Thank you so much to our speakers for sharing, and thank you guys for attending. Again, we have more sessions coming up in the future. Please register for them. We hope to see you soon. And with that, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, and hope to see you next time.